Hi friends, I'm Dr. Chandeshwar Yadav. Welcome to Literary Criticism class. In the last video, I simply talked about history of literary criticism. But today, in this video, I'm talking about what is formalism. So, formalism is a 20th century literary theory that analyzes, interprets, and evaluates the work of art not by using any cultural, biographical, and historical aspect of the writer and the text, but by using literary and linguistic devices such as metaphor, simile, and other literary devices. And not only that, even formalism talks about grammar and syntax, or by the use of grammatical item, by the use of syntactical item, by the use of metaphor and similes and other literary devices. If the literary text is analyzed, if the literary text is evaluated, then it is called formalism. So, dear students, so literary text can be analyzed in two ways. One is contextual ways, whereas another is textual approach. So while talking about contextual approach, a text can be studied, a text can be evaluated on the basis of cultural aspect, on the basis of biographical aspect, on the basis of historical aspect. So this is contextual approach. But another approach, that is textual approach. So whenever talking or evaluating a literary text using textual approach, then not biographical, not cultural, not historical, not social, but whatever type of languages are used, whatever type of words are used, whatever type of literary devices are used, whatever type of linguistic devices are used, those things are given importance. And literary criticism focus on not on contextual approach but on textual approach. And not only that, so whenever talking about its history or the history of formalism, that formalism is also called Russian formalism, because this Russian formalism or the formalism started in or developed in USSR or in Russia. So it began in two groups. The Moscow Linguistic Circle, led by Roman Jakobson, was formed in 1915, and the Soviet for the Study of Poetic Language, or the Society for the Study of Poetic Language affairs, led by Victor Skolovsky, was founded in 1916. So these two groups were scholars were there. They developed this Russian formalism, but they both belong to USSR, and these two groups gave much more priority not to biographical aspect, social aspect, or historical aspect, but to whatever given in the text, whatever given in the literary text, whatever type of words, whatever type of sentences are used in the literary text or in the poem, that were given importance. So these two figures, Roman Jakobson and Viktor Skolovsky, are said to be founding father of Russian formalism or formalism. So this formalism emerged in the first half of the 20th century or beginning of the 20th century in the reaction against Marxism, because in USSR or in Russia, even everything was understood, everything was analyzed, everything was interpreted on the basis of Marxism, on the basis of biographical aspect, on the basis of cultural aspect, and more than that, on the basis of economic aspect. Literary text or every text or everything was understood or judged. That's why this group of writers, this group of scholars gave much more priority not to that thing, but whatever used in literary text that were given importance. So these scholars were totally fed up with the contemporary Marxism and contemporary views about the Russian society. That's why they developed new form of approach. They developed new form of formalism. They developed a new type of analysis or interpretation, that is Russian formalism, that is formalism. And formalism was counterpart of new criticism that was developed in America by T.S. Eliot and some other writer, some other scholar talked about new criticism. So this is a counterpart of formalism. And so whenever talking about characteristics of formalism, so formalistic writer or formalist stressed the importance of form and technique over content. So as he has said, for formalism or the scholar of formalism, forms and techniques are important thing. Instead of giving priority to content, instead of giving priority to subject matter, they focus on form and technique. So form and technique are one of the vital aspect of formalism. It considers literature as a special use of language, and it devoted to the analysis of form or howness alone. In other words, for Russian formalism or Russian formalism simply gives importance on form or howness. For them, what is literature, that is not important, but how in literature something is said, that is important. So howness is important for Russian formalism, structure is important, form is important instead of content, instead of subject matter. So even you can take one example of E. Cummings. You might have heard about E. Cummings, one of the American writer, one of the American poet. Even this E. Cummings has given much more priority to form or structure or howness, not to content. Even you might have heard, you might have studied the poetry of E. Cummings. In the poetry of E. Cummings, he mostly used a small letter. So even the sentence starts generally with capital letter, but in the poetry of E. Cummings, you can see with a small letter poetry starts or the sentence starts. So here this E. Cummings gives much more priority to form or howness or structure instead of giving priority to content, instead of giving priority to subject matter. In the just like that, so it views or Russian formalism views literature primarily as a specialized mode of language, and what it proposes a fundamental opposition between literary use of language and ordinary use of language. So for Russian formalism, two types of languages used are there. One is ordinary use of language, whereas literary use of language, or one is day-to-day use of language, whereas another is literary form of or literary use of language. And this Russian formalism focus on literary use of language instead of focusing on ordinary use of language, and it can be made clear through examples. So as here I have presented two examples. The first example is, I like you very much. I like you very much. That is one example, and that is ordinary use of language. But in the same way, another example is there where it is said, you are my heart. So here in this second sentence, you can see the writer has used metaphor, and metaphor has made the sentence different from ordinary use of language, and it has attracted the attention of the reader, it has attracted the attention of the listener. That's why this is literary use of language, and this is how Russian formalism give much more priority to form instead of content, instead of meaning. Another thing, so that literature is the deliberate distortion or violation of practical language. Literature is the deliberate distortion or violation of practical language, or literary use of language is totally different from day-to-day use of language. In literary language or in literature, there is the violation of grammatical rule, there is the distortion of grammatical language, grammatical rules and regulation, there is the violation of day-to-day life language. As an example, you can see the Paradise Lost, which is the world famous epic written by John Milton, and what here John Milton has done. So here you can see, or it is the grammar, it is the English grammar that tells us. So first adjective comes, then after noun comes, or adjective plus noun, that is the rule of English grammar. But here in the topic, in the title of John Milton world famous epic, instead of using instead of using first as a adjective, here the writer or the John Milton has used noun first, then adjective is used here. It means it is the total distortion of or violation of practical language, or it is violation of grammatical language or grammar of English language. That's why literature is the deliberate distortion or violation of practical language, and this is the priority of Russian formalism, and this thing done by even formalism. And as just we have talked, Viktor Skolovsky is the founding father of Russian formalism. So Skolovsky, in his essay Art as Technique, opposes the symbolist movement in general and focuses on artistic device like defamiliarization. So as this Viktor Skolovsky, who was born in 1893 and who was died in 1984, so in his essay Art as a Technique, who opposes the symbolist movement which interprets the text on the basis of image, on the basis of symbol, on the basis of cultural aspect, on the basis of historical aspect. That things are opposed by Skolovsky. But instead of giving priority to symbolist movement, this Viktor Skolovsky introduces one artistic device, that is defamiliarization. And defamiliarization, one of the central concepts of formalism. So whenever talking about formalism, then it is need to talk about defamiliarization. So defamiliarization is a device to destroy habitual or automatic perception. Defamiliarization, which means make it strange or habitual action, habitual perception, which is destroyed by one of the technique, one of the devices. That device is called defamiliarization. As in the picture you can see, though human face is there, but this human face is presented in another way. So by seeing the picture, you can totally your habitual perception, your automatic perception is destroyed here. So defamiliarization, that is the vital aspect of formalism, which means make something strange, or a literary writer or a literary person or a writer or literature that totally destroy habitual perception, that totally destroy automatic perception. That's why literary use of language or literature is different from ordinary form of language, or literature is different from other thing or general aspect. So another great personality of this Russian formalism is Jan Mukharovsky. So Jan Mukharovsky was born in 1891 and who died in 1975. So even this Mukharovsky, in his essay Standard Language and Poetry Language, introduces the concept called foregrounding. So foregrounding is another aspect, foregrounding is another device of formalism. So foregrounding is the process of de-automatization. Literature is the literature because of foregrounding. So foregrounding, that is the process of de-automatization, or whatever you are seeing, whatever you are doing, that thing should be in the center and other thing should be in the periphery. So here in the picture you can see many more person are there, many more girls are there, many more ladies are there, and they are doing same type of activity. But in the picture, in the female or among these ladies, one lady is there which is different from other lady. So making yourself different, making your writing, making your activity different from other, that is foregrounding. So this is the example of foregrounding. And so formalism is a literary criticism that consider form and technique as a tool to treat literary text, not its contents. So again here as a conclusion you can see, so this formalism is gives much more priority to form and technique to treat the literary text. Its content is nothing, its subject matter is nothing, its everything is form and technique, or technique is everything. So how something is said is the subject matter of it. So, or in other words, formalism believes how something is said, not it consider what is said, or what is said is nothing, but how something is said is everything. For literary what for Russian formalism, for formalism, so this is Russian formalism. So thanks for watching it, dear student. Thank you very much. Thank you.